Este anuncio es sobre la oferta de AT&T para el nuevo iPhone 15 Pro, que es garantizada, aunque ese no es el caso con otros anuncios.
Todos caerán a tus pies. Con el jabón, enamórale.
Spoiler alert, no funciona. En AT&T, lo que decimos va en serio. Descubre cómo obtener el iPhone 15 Pro con titanio por cuenta nuestra con intercambio elegible. Conectar lo cambia todo. Visita tt.com/iPhone para más detalles sobre la garantía de la promoción de intercambio para clientes nuevos y existentes. Disponible por tiempo limitado, sujeto a términos y restricciones.
Hola, and welcome to Word to Your Mama, the podcast that amplifies diverse voices and celebrates shared experiences. Hosted by me, Ritzy P., a Latina creative entrepreneur with a background in art, music, and new web technologies. From Academy Award and Emmy winners to talented healers, passionate activists, innovative artists, and visionary builders, Word to Your Mama attracts a grip of dope individuals who embody the rich diversity of my multicultural tribe. There will be special guests, mad laughs, and absolutely no BS. Is there a chance this podcast could be explicit? Please believe it. Word to Your Mama drops every Monday. Today we have Brian Cross, aka B+. He's an Irish-born photographer, director, and I like to describe him as a hip-hop archivist, a hip-hop historian, if you will. He's the photographer behind some of the most iconic album covers and iconic photos of hip-hop greats such as J Dilla, Biggie, and more. He was also the photo editor of Wax Poetics and Rap Pages, director of photography for the Academy Award-nominated documentary Exit Through the Gift Shop, and some of my fave music films, Keepintime, Brasilintime, and Timeless. He also wrote and shot the photos for the book It's Not About a Salary, Rap, Race, and Resistance in Los Angeles. Currently, he's an associate professor in the Department of Visual Arts at the University of California, San Diego, no less. 619. In this episode, we discuss his roots into hip-hop, being born and raised in Limerick, Ireland, going from landscape photography to iconic hip-hop albums. That trajectory. Given access to spaces as a tall white man, he took photos of the Booyah tribe in the 90s, kids. Say less. Directing his first feature in 10 years about the Supremes being stuck in Limerick, Ireland back in 1981. The difference between Irish and Irish American, don't get it twisted, and so much more. So I just want to mention that we recorded this convo back in October. We are now, when this episode drops, in November, and the genocide in Palestine still continues. So, as we're talking about it, it just gone up to a certain level. Some shit had just went down. And then B also mentions one of his fave songs, Fairy Tale of New York, by the Pogues and Kirsty MacColl. Unfortunately, just a few days ago, the Pogues frontman, Shane MacGowan, left this world. So rest in power to him and gracias por todo. Per usual, we have the convo and then you have the Supernatural Bear Corner. And yes, we still got Sweet Yams going. It's the cover that Supernatural Bear and I did. And it's going to take us out for the rest of the year, kids, because Sweet Yams are still in full effect. So I just love having convos with people from my tribe because I get to learn so much more about them than we do just by being around each other. So it's really great to catch up with B and then have the catch up after the off air, quote unquote off air catch up afterwards. So yeah, let's get into this. B, muchísimas gracias for being here. This is a long time coming. I've said this to a few people that I've had on here so far in the 3 years since September 2020, that when I started this, there was a list. When I had this idea, there was a list, right, of how dope my tribe is, like people that I've met along my travels. And you were one of those people. So thank you so much for being here. Let's start it off the way I start off every convo. How are you doing? ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, I'm doing good. I'm a little, I have a lot going on, but I'm managing my stress levels fairly well today. So, I'm good. I'm good. I'm in good shape. I'm happy to be here in front of you. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Gracias.
Yeah, man.
I'm happy to hear that you're doing well. And, I get so excited to do this because I was just telling my friends, I get to learn so much about my friends. We don't have convos like this, right? We see each other if we haven't seen each other mad years, but like if we see each other, it's just like whatever's happening. But when I get to do research on my friends, I was like, holy shit. I forgot that they did all this shit, or I didn't know some of the shit that they did. But let's take it back. Where were you born and raised, B?
I was born and raised in Limerick, Ireland. I mean, I'm a 60s child, so 70s was really, my formative years was the 70s, the 80s too, of course, but I definitely, I remember the 70s pretty well, so yeah.
And then, so at what age did you come over to the States?
I came to the States when I was 24.
Oh, so born and raised, already a young adult.
No, I'm Irish.
You're Irish through and through.
I'm Irish.
Hence, I've always known you.
Yeah. Yes, Irish. Yes, all of that. Yes.
So,
been supporting Palestine. Yes, Irish, that kind.
Yeah,
yes.
Hell yeah, let's talk. We are definitely going to talk about that shit because this is happening right now. This will come out later, but it is October 17th. Definitely want to talk about that. And the connection, right? And the support.
Sure.
That's for sure. So 24, you come to the States. Where do you land?
Actually, I landed in San Francisco. I had come to San Francisco in 1988 as a J1 student visa person. J1 is like a work program for overseas students to allow them to have the American experience. For us, it was like a chance to make some dough so you could get through the following year because there wasn't much by way of summer work in Ireland in them days, or work period in them days. And it was an experience and you had a chance to do it. So I had friends in San Francisco, went and worked worked for starving students as a mover in San Francisco in 1988. Spent all my money on hip hop records mostly and went home, much to everybody's chagrin. And then I applied to grad school basically at Cal Arts and was accepted and came back to go to Cal Arts in, I guess that was April of 1990. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I lived in San Francisco for a few months first until August. And then August of 90, I moved to LA. And got a little apartment in North Hollywood and started going to Cal Arts, basically.
That's crazy. So what do you think, looking back now, and has this ever changed in your mind? What is your root growing up that, exposed you or got you into hip hop in Ireland during that time?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say really what exactly it was, but I think, punk rock was a huge, I was very young now. So like in 1976, let's say I was 10 years old. 1977, I was 11 at my school. I remember very vividly the two big cultural things that hit our school, St. Patrick's National School on the Dublin Road in Limerick, was punk rock. Mm. So we had one gang at school that were called the Paddy Punk Rockers, if I remember correctly. And then the other thing, which is really trippy, which I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I'll explain a little bit in a while, but was Roots. Roots came on TV.
Oh, CCC.
And so the other gang were called the Chicken Georges. And yeah, when you think about it, man, I was like 11 years old, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something weirdly premonitionary, I guess is what you would say, about what the fuck I was about to do for the rest of my life. But yeah, and it was just pure pop culture shit. I mean, we were very ignorant. And I think it was definitely an outside looking thing, you know. As I became more interested in music, and I never knew music to not be political. Like I always, you know, there was always a social component. It was never, do you know what I mean? I never really, even though I remember listening to the Carpenters, I guess. It was like, in our house, we had like we didn't have a turntable. We had like a cassette player, and it was like, that was one of their first cassettes we had, was like the Carpenters' greatest hits or whatever. But it's not like I consume music, but as far as music being something that was of me, there was always a political component, just because it was punk.
Right.
Groups like The Clash, groups like Stiff Little Fingers. And obviously then there was, you know, the 70s and the 80s in Ireland was a particularly difficult period in terms of our history, in terms of what was going on. Mostly what was going on in the north, but it did affect the entire country. So, you know, it felt like Front Street a little bit, you know what I mean? As far as like, I don't know. I remember when I first came to the States, you know, like when I was moving furniture or whatever, people say like, "Oh, you have an interesting accent. Where are you from?" And I would say, you know, "I'm from Ireland" or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, Ireland," and I would be like, "Oh yeah, there's bombs there, yeah, for sure. How cool!
How cool! There's bombs there.
How cool! There's bombs, yeah." But you know, like, yeah, there was a mainland bombing campaign. There was hunger strikes. There was, you know, it was difficult. There was no way to be not aware of it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Our houses were searched. There was bomb scares frequently. But then when you're kids, all that shit kind of is normalized. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, I mean, that's just what's going on. It's not like, imagine what it would be like if our houses weren't searched, or imagine what it would be like if there wasn't bomb scares or whatever. But anyway, all of that stuff become part of all that stuff was softening up the dough for the big land, which was, there's a couple of records really that kind of hit. There was a big breakdance scene in Limerick, but I wasn't a part of it. I was a big dude. I played rugby. You know what I mean? I wasn't a dancer. You know what I mean? Per se, still not a dancer. Sure, if you ask any of my friends. But so it was like by 84, 85, I would say, I was keenly aware and watching everything that was going on as far as the culture, as much as you could in them days, considering we were 6,000 miles away. We weren't London.
Right.
We didn't have a black population. There was black people that lived there. I'm making a film right now, and I can say conclusively that there were 4 black people in the city I lived in. In 1981. This is part of the film I'm making, but I'll explain more later. But it wasn't through those means. It was literally through reading music magazines, picking up foreign radio stations a little bit, and then just paying attention. And before I ever came to the States, I think coming to San Francisco in 1988 at the height of the kind of, you know, crack, AIDS, Iran-Contra, confirmed for me something that I had felt from ever before I came to the States, which was that hip hop was the most vital and important cultural thing to happen to our generation. I stayed in the Mission District in them days, and the Mission was a lot different in them days, man. Wowee.
I can imagine.
I preferred it in them days, honestly. I mean, it was definitely, it was a wild place. A very interesting place, but it was a wild place. It was a lot of different kinds of communities brushing up against each other. And, you know, there were still projects on Dolores. There was still, you know, it was still very, very, very interesting place. And I just remember, like, there was nothing there was nothing in cinema. There was nothing in contemporary art that prepared you for that. I don't know, that like, yeah, it was like 5 cans of Jolt. Remember Jolt? You know what I mean? I remember, wow, there's actually a cola that they've added sugar and added caffeine.
Right.
Oh, that's a great idea. It's long before Red Bull. But it was like, it was like a super rush of exuberance, art, danger, poverty. Everything seemed Front Street. It seemed, like I remember going to London, and there was a part of London called the Front Line. There was a front line in Notting Hill, and it was just like it was a place you could go buy weed 24 hours a day, basically. But you could buy other things too, obviously. But and it was an edge of a Caribbean community at that time, and I feel like Mission and 16th, you know what I mean, in them days was kind of like it was like a front line. It was like if you went down that way, it was prostitution. If you went down this way, it was like the Castro. If you went down this way, it was like murals and art lofts. And if you went down this way, it was crack being smoked openly. And if you went down, you know what I mean? And it was the first time I ever had sushi. There was a Japanese guy had a tiny sushi place, and he liked country music, and it was crazy. It was country music sushi, and it was just like, wow, this is the maddest experience. So then I decided I wanted to come back and do grad school. There was a teacher that I really liked teaching at CalArts at that time, and at least I liked his work. I didn't know what he was like as a teacher, but so I applied, and I got in. And then in the process of accepting school, I got offered. This is I don't know, to what extent you believe in synchronicity or whatever.
Yes.
So while I was waiting to find out if I had gotten accepted into CalArts, I got a letter from the American Embassy in Dublin. And I thought, like, I didn't even open it because I thought, like, oh man, these people are so ahead of the game. These Americans are so efficient. But what it was actually was the complete opposite. It was like my mom had applied for a visa. She'd applied for all of us. Everyone in Ireland did. There was a visa amnesty in the early 80s. There was some Democratic senators had probably done a dirty deal with Reagan, Tip O'Neill and a bunch of them. And it was called the Donnelly visa. And basically you had to just send your name and a copy of your ID and a return envelope to DC, and everybody in Ireland did it. There was ads in the Sunday newspapers, but that was like 6 years previously. I was 16, now I was 23, and now I got a letter back saying you've been accepted.
Oh, wow.
For this visa program, and I just applied to grad school. So yeah, that was kind of, well, I guess there he goes.
Sign, symbols, and clues.
Yeah. There was no. The prospect of jobs in that era in Ireland was fucking horrific. It was really bad. And so, yeah, it was like, well, there you go. Right. There's a direction for him. There's some place to go. So I came. And then it was, honestly, it wasn't like I was like, well, here's my chance to become a hip hop photographer. I didn't even know that was a job. You know what I mean? Like I was so naive. You know what I mean? The notion that you could get paid to like do that kind of work was just like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know anybody like that. I didn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just like, wow. And I just thought I would come and I would go to school and I would be, it would make me more qualified to be a teacher when I went home, basically. And so I came to CalArts, and then that's kind of where everything started to, things started to change. The plan changed.
That's fascinating, because I was wondering, for the youngsters that are listening to this was pre-internet. How far or how delayed was hip hop for you guys in Ireland? Like, when did like an estimate, like, oh, something came out here, but then it got to you guys? Like, how long was that timeline?
it wasn't. I mean, that's assuming that there was like some, chain of delivery that we were at the end of or something. That didn't exist. I mean, it was like some things made it, something like random shit, like Schoolie D, for example, who I still to this day, God bless Schoolie D, man. Nobody can say any wrong about Schoolie D for me, because Schoolie was completely independent, put his shit out. Somehow, I'm not sure how, but he caught the ears of people like Mick Jones of The Clash. So when Mick Jones did the first tour with Big Audio Dynamite in like 1986, 1987, he put Schoolie as the opener, and they came to Ireland.
Dope.
And we saw him, and it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, so it'd be like weird, random. It was way more random. It wasn't like a proper delay.
Right.
Like, like somebody dropped a pebble in the Atlantic Ocean in Bronx, and then eventually the ripple. It wasn't that rational. So there was things I knew about, people would go and bring back tapes, but some of the stories are not that different than what you'd hear in LA, like,
from New York. Yeah. Cause we were getting shit
from New York,
right.
So you have a cousin that's coming from New York and was bringing mixtapes, and it was the informal, it was much more the informal kind of economy. And I remember, like, even when I left, I will say I left my school, NCAD. I left NCAD in 1988, and I came back from that J1 visa. No, sorry, I left in 89, and I came back in 91. And I remember, and there was nobody left in the school that I knew. And I remember going to the kind of cafeteria, and there was a pool table in the cafeteria in them days. And as I was walking by the pool table, there was kids there with the tape deck, and they were playing a Red Alert tape that I had taped off the radio in back in 88.
Shut up.
And they were playing it, and I was, you know what I mean, like that,
yes.
That kind of hand to hand tapes. I mean, it was that, and then somehow, and there was so on the BBC in them days you had Westwood. Westwood was on there, disgraced ass Westwood.
Este anuncio es sobre la oferta de AT&T para el nuevo iPhone 15 Pro, que es garantizada, aunque ese no es el caso con otros anuncios.
Todos caerán a tus pies. Con el jabón, enamórale.
Spoiler alert, no funciona. En AT&T, lo que decimos va en serio. Descubre cómo obtener el iPhone 15 Pro con titanio por cuenta nuestra con intercambio elegible. Conectar lo cambia todo. Visita tt.com/iPhone para más detalles sobre la garantía de la promoción de intercambio para clientes nuevos y existentes. Disponible por tiempo limitado, sujeto a términos y restricciones.
Was on there, and you could sometimes pick up the show. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the first time I remember hearing like Big Daddy Kane. And then London, people would go to London. You could find things sometimes in London, but it wasn't. Yeah, I think Japan, places like Japan, actually was much more
right.
There was already kind of. There was infrastructure in place where there were Japanese folks coming to America to find soul and jazz records and bringing them back. And then it wasn't too much of an extension then for those folks to start to bring hip-hop stuff back. And then there were tours, obviously. Rocksteady went to England, Rocksteady went to Japan. You know what I mean? But Ireland would shit.
But that's crazy to know that
we were not on that.
That you guys were exposed to Schoolie D. Like, that's
and
live.
PE.
That's crazy.
I'll tell you this. I went to see Public Enemy play at McGonagall's in 1988, I believe it was, 1987. I think it was 88. And I'll tell you who was there, standing in the back by herself. And I'll never forget it. I'll never let anyone talk shit about this person, because this person is fucking down. She's here with us. Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah. R.I.P. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
1988, bro. I remember that shit. I remember it vividly. And I'll tell you something. No, I hadn't even been to the States yet properly. And I remember, so Flav was clowning and talking about, like, what's that fucking series? Lucky Charms and shit. We were all like, Lucky Charms? What the fuck is that?
Like, are you trying to diss us? Because I don't even know what it is.
But Chuck, I remember he made this. He told this story of how it made him really happy to come to Ireland and to drive down the streets and to look at, it's quite, I don't know if you've seen those kind of Irish storefronts, but they're like, little storefronts, and it'll have the family name of the business. It won't say even what the business is. It'll just say, Murphy, Ryan, whatever. And to be driving down the streets and to look and to see the name over every business be an Irish name, and to explain that for African Americans, there was no place that they could go. And I that really struck me. It kind of like, I kind of felt like, wow, I never even thought of that. Like, you wouldn't even think, you know what I mean? Like, what does a homeland actually look like? And yeah, and then I saw that, and then I went that summer to San Francisco, and then it was. I remember like another thing from that era that was really struck me was I remember an artist, Aaron Noble was his name, from the Mission. White dude, very interesting guy, good artist. But he took me and my friend aside, and he was like, I noticed you guys are going up to Tower Records in the Haight to buy your CDs. Even maybe it wasn't them days. I don't even know. I was buying vinyl too.
Right.
But he said, it's you should really think about why don't you buy, why don't you go to Hunter's Point, or why don't you go to Fillmore, and why don't you support those stores, because those are the stores in the community that produces the music.
Right.
And it was another one of those things like, we're from Ireland. I don't fucking know anything. I was like, fuck yeah. So sure enough, it turned out we ended up, Starving Students was in Hunters Point, and there was a record store in Hunters Point. And we started to go every day. I'd go get my paycheck, go to the check cashing place, and go 2 or 3 doors over was the record store. And I started buying records. I already had some, but like now I was really able to, go to a store where there was like a whole section and shit.
Right. And some probably like new shit that Tower Records like would never get, or you know what I mean, like quality.
Local shit,
a
lot of local independent shit. You know what I mean, like, which again I was only becoming hip to at that time. Punk rock aesthetic. Obviously knew about it, but didn't have too much access to that kind of stuff in Limerick. Whereas obviously there it was important. And it just the kind of notion of kind of thinking about these types of decisions in an ethical way. Right. Is something that's kind of, I remember the first time Shadow telling me, like, try to avoid the bootlegs. Try, if you can find the original record, buy the original record. Right. But somehow that money will find its way back, But obviously over the years, but like I remember, it was very much part of the thing of like, pay attention to that stuff. Don't just be a passive consumer. You know what I mean?
Be intentional.
Find ways. Be intentional with your money. Be intentional with your attention. Be intentional with your, you know what I mean? Who you show up for. That kind of thing. So yeah,
it's crazy. Like just hearing, like the abridged version of your history. It seems like you're saying, the synchronicity, the signs, symbols, and clues. Since Ireland, since your upbringing, there's been people and things in place to kind of guide you, right? Like homeboy being like, go to Hunters Point, buy over here, da 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 da. Shadow being da 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 da, and hearing you talk about growing up in Ireland and what the climate was, remembering those times, right? Like history that we knew about what's happening in Ireland. It all makes sense into who you are. Like, of course, B was raised in Ireland during those times and was exposed to this and da 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 da. And now he's done all that. Like, it makes all the sense in the world to me now, And so looking back and doing the research, I saw that, I was looking at dates and I was like, oh, your book came out in 1993, right? It's not about a salary, rap, race, and resistance in LA. And I was like, I want to ask him, how long were you in LA? So what was it? 3 years, right? Before that came out. And then that came out in 93. But how long did it take you? Like, what was the genesis of that? Like, yo, I'm going to write this. I'm going to write it. I'm going to take shoot the photos for it. Boom, it's LA.
Oh, yeah. So 90, I was already thinking about it, like I was already, I never thought I was going to do work about it, but I was very engaged in thinking about, the kind of the micro in terms of, the politics of hip hop, especially the politics of West Coast hip hop was very interesting to me. Obviously, this is a period where Cube has split from NWA. There's is of, P are at their, first phase of kind of, really change the game, this kind of thing. So, so all this stuff is going on. In, I guess it was February or May of, maybe May of 91. So I was just this annoying fucking grad student who was called precocious frequently, who was constantly, bringing up things like Ice Cube or PE or whatever, in discussions of art or cultural practice that would otherwise have excluded people like that. And and it wasn't like I was this, I was a fan for sure, but I was also feeling like, I think it's a bit silly that we're not thinking about this, because these people are actually doing things that are, that are really fucking important and talking about things that are really important. And there was a lot of things in that era where you first heard it in a hip hop record. It was, you know what I mean? It was Iran-Contra for a lot of people, KRS and people they're bringing crack into the community. And then, it turns out it's fucking true. They were, but it took the mainstream media and a couple of people getting killed and whatever. But anyways, so through a series of discussions with Mike Davis, who was another one of those people who was a dude who showed up at the bridge and was just like, yeah, you should go that direction. He offered me the opportunity to make at first it was just to make a photo. Would you make a photo essay for this French journal I'm editing about Los Angeles? And there was, I said, okay, and it was kind of, it's like one of those things seems like a good idea. I'm actually learning to be a photographer finally. I was a landscape photographer actually when I came to the US. That's mostly what I was doing. And so, yeah, I the first people I photographed were the Booyah Tribe. The second people I photographed, and then I was photographing at clubs a little bit. And then the second group of people that I photographed was the Watts Prophets. And that was a real kind of, that was really another moment. Meeting Amdi from the Watts Prophets was really another moment. But when I went back to Mike, he said, this is amazing. I was like, I can't believe you've got this much done. And because it was we needed it in a month. It was like this kind of a thing. And he was like, I can't believe you've made this much inroads or whatever. And I was just like, oh, well, it didn't seem that crazy to me. I was whatever. I was just following my nose really. And he said, what if we turn this into a book? And I was just like, so we turned into a proposal. They accepted it. And then I reached out to a bunch of people that I knew at the time that I thought would be good to write it. And I'll just make the photos. It sounds fine to me. I had some ideas about what I should do. I mean, naive maybe, but I had some ideas. And mostly people were like, you're doing a book about hip hop in LA? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, what? Either they were saying what hip hop in LA? Right. Or, you know what I'm saying? That's enough for a book. You know what I mean? People didn't really, but what they didn't know was that I had also, I had met the Watts Prophets, which was really important. And I had met Horace Tapscott and I had met Billy Higgins, but I'd also met the Freestyle Fellowship. And I walked straight into the fucking good life.
Wow.
And yeah. And I of course, there's no, I mean, did you ever go there? Did you ever go?
No, I got here after it. I got here after
you went to
fact.
Blow It. You went to probably Project Blow It.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to a good life. I mean, honestly, man, like, what, I mean, it was like a Thursday night from 8 to 10 in a health food shop that sat maybe 40 people. You know what I'm saying? And then okay, like the sessions would really be in the parking lot afterwards, of course. But like, I mean, there was nothing going like, this is the future of music.
No, yeah.
Like, it was just like, they didn't even have the mic was terrible. The sound was terrible. The beats were played off cassette, you know what I'm saying? But but as much as we laugh and as much as we, as we understand what you realize when you really start to look, you realize, well, shit, that's how hip hop started.
Right.
And shit, that's how samba started. And that's how cumbia started.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, things start in humble places. They don't start in boardrooms under nice fluorescent lit rooms with good sound systems. They don't. And I was naive. You know what I mean? I didn't have anything in my experience to tell me like, yo, you just walked into something. But I knew loads of people that would tell, oh, you should, you really got to check this out, man. These kids this is some special shit. And of course, people, it was like, and it wasn't even that far out the way. It was like, like Exposition and La Brea or Exposition and Crenshaw or whatever. And like, but make the effort, show up, bring your camera, take some photos, make friends, talk to people, try to understand what's happening. And yeah. And then through a kind of fortuitous set of things, meeting Raymond Roker, who ran Herb Magazine and was just on issue number 2, I think, at the time. Meeting the woman who was the head of publicity at Priority at the time, whose name has gone out of my head right now. She'll be mad at me. But, and just being very lucky, really, in terms of like, staying focused and taking things seriously. That was other things. Like I never, ever, 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 ever took any of that stuff for granted. I always understood that what I was seeing, I was super privileged.
I was going to say, yeah.
Super grateful to be even in the room, dude. It was like, but as far as white people, man, it was me, Cut, and you'd see DJP from time to time. That was it. I didn't see nobody else.
I was wondering, how did you get access to Booyah Tribe, and how was that at that time? That was like...
Booyah was like a couple of cats out of the group used to do security at clubs in Hollywood. And I remember asking them, like, yo, you set me up to do photos. I'm doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. In them days, it was, there was no managers. There was no publicists. It was just straight to
access.
The Godfather's looking for you. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I remember they were living it was a house in Echo Park, actually, where I photographed them. And the photos aren't even great. I mean, you know what I mean? I was still figuring it out. But it was just, I mean, it was an important moment. And there wasn't too many other people that were really taking it that seriously.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, I mean, I don't know. I've lived this sort of blessed life where it's like, I've just been fortunate enough to, find my way into places that are very interesting at moments that are interesting,
Yeah, and it's not like you're a small dude either. Like you're tall. No. Like you can't sneak into places. So you have to be granted access, and you've been granted access to a grip of. I mean, I was telling some friends, who I was going to have a convo with, and one, of course, knew who you were, and the other one was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, how would I describe him? And I was like, a hip hop activist historian, like
maybe,
like that's how I see you. That's how I saw you when I first met you. And if I remember correctly, I don't know if you remember when you first met me, but I believe it was during one of the Mumia 911 events. I think Frank Sosa brought me in, and you were doing those photos where it was on the V. And stuff, and I think that's where I met you. So so that was the beginning of my introduction to you, and seeing you from that point into where we are now. It just, that's how I see you. Like, oh, he's here to not only document, but also be a part of the culture and before I forget, I just want to say super grateful for you, sir. Super grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
So, doing the
Well,
research.
the first person to ever say that about me, and I don't know whether it was an article or something, but I remember it was in the 90s, and somebody asked Raka about me, and Raka said, whatever it is that he decides he wants to, or whoever it is he decides he wants to, or whatever he decides he wants to work with, the project will be better by virtue of his presence.
Facts.
And I was just like, wow, that's a really damn, Raka. Well, I remember I called him, I was like, yo, thank you.
That's real.
That was a very, very, very nice thing to say about somebody, actually. And it made me, I felt happy for this. And I guess that's it, because I actually, as a far, am I the best photographer? I don't think so. Am I the best filmmaker? I don't think so. But then I do occupy a lane where it's like, there are certain things that I bring to the table that in such a way that not everybody else is able to do or whatever. And so,
yeah. And you know what?
I
think it is because you're granted access, because I think, this scene, you're not going to get in just because you're white, like, especially if you're white. People really have to see you, really have to feel your intention. And I think, they say whenever you create, if you're making salsa, if you're angry, it's in the salsa, right? Like whatever you're doing. And photography as well, whatever you're doing creatively, there's a love and respect that shines through your work because you've been given this access, because you are a fan of it, because you respect it. And I think that all those things combined, you can't redo that. Like, someone could be a better photographer technically, but there's a language, a visual language, a communication of love and respect. And I think that differentiates your work and what Coleman does and stuff from other photographers. Like, oh yeah, they took a photo of a Biggie, of, MF Doom or whatever, but there's another level, there's like extra levels, another frequency that I think your work communicates. It's gorgeous too, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous too. But I wanted to ask, you've taken photos of some of the most iconic classic albums. You were director of photography for films, director yourself. One of my favorites, Keepintime. You were photo editor of Wax Poetics, Rap Page. I mean, like, so much fucking iconic shit. Like, nothing was like, no half stepping anywhere. But now if you meet somebody and they say, oh, what do you do? What is your answer? How do you answer that shit? Do you want to support original content that supports diverse voices? Why not support Word to Your Mama? You're listening to it right now. Become a patron. Head over to patreon.com/WTYM. There are 4 patron levels to choose from, including Good Looking Out, I'm Down, Hell Yeah, and Please Believe It. Benefits include patron shoutouts, exclusive patron-only content, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/WTYM to take your support to the next level. Gracias.
Many of us have heard of the devastating passing of Hurricane Fiona through Puerto Rico, but not many of us know of ways, or better yet, trustworthy ways to help and contribute to those in need. Fiona a través de los ojos de los niños is an NFT project featuring art made by children of the nonprofit school Flor de Loto in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Through their drawings, they've expressed their feelings and fears which they went through the hurricane. You can help these children, their school, families, and communities by minting one of their NFTs at helppr.xyz. You can also help by sending crypto directly to their wallet listed on the website, or do a donation through PayPal. The links can be found in the description. And to learn more about this initiative and how you can help, please visit helppr.xyz or via Twitter at helpprflm.
I'm usually just like, yo, I'm a photographer.
and just keep it like photographer, and then that's it.
You know what I mean? Like I'm personally like I'm like when it started to land weird for me when the culture started to turn into like everybody was the best. You know what I mean? I have to tell, like I'm one of those people, like if I have to tell you, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm the best. There's a pretty fucking high likelihood that I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I'm all about like, let me just, you know what I mean? We could just meet and, you know what I mean? I want to meet you, you know what I mean? It might not be the first thing you're going to tell me that you have this amazing podcast, blah, 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 great family, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to meet each other and we're going to, and I like to keep it like that. You know what I mean? I'm way more on the low key. So I generally just, I'm a photographer. Or if somebody is talking about like, you know, filmmaking or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I make films, you know. Yeah, I make films too. But I'm not here like, I say, Exit Through the Gift Shop was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, totally. That's whack. That's totally, yeah.
Boo boo. I mean, no, I don't do that shit. So yeah. So I generally just keep it low key. Or sometimes I say I'm a professor. You know, I am a tenured professor of photography and filmmaking. Yeah. Which I am.
Which you are.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I keep it low key.
Nice. That's interesting because I always wondered what you would say. So let's talk about art as form of, protest, art as form of resistance, music. How, you grew up in that shit.
For sure.
Have we?
I did. I also grew up under the shadow of some of the worst examples of that shit too. You know what I'm saying?
So how important is that? And do you feel this generation of any genre of music, have we lost it? Where do you think we're at?
No, I don't see. I believe these things are like a pendulum. It's a pendulum basically, and we're swinging between body and mind. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, definitely, we've been going through a body moment, pretty hardcore. You know, people experimenting with drugs, people experimenting with being in their bodies, people experimenting with certain kinds of movement. Dance has become really, really important, an important part of the culture again in a way that it hasn't been for a long time.
Facts.
Through socials and whatnot. But that don't. There's no. We've left the room or something. Like I don't believe that. There's also some fucking really important stuff being done. I often think also that I think if you limit your version of hip hop to what's happening within the 48 or shall we say 50 states, you're making a big mistake now.
Right.
And some of the most important political activist work is happening outside the United States, actually. You know what I mean? I'm talking about indigenous communities. I'm talking about in the Middle East. I'm talking about, I'm talking one of my favorites, the Chilean, somebody you should have definitely on this podcast is Anna T.U.
Hell yeah. Would love that.
Oh man, I love Anna. She came to visit me in Ireland during the summer. It was I laughed so much. I haven't actually had pains in my cheeks in a long time, and it's like 3 days of insanity. She's funny as hell. But basically, no. I would say the other thing, I think it's important for us, especially on the left. And I know in a week like this, it's just fucking appallingly difficult. But it is important to keep a disposition of optimism, dude. I think it's really important. I think, yes, we are in a profoundly dark moment, unequivocally. But there's never a day when I don't see signs that things are, that things are moving and things are changing and there are things that are getting better too. I think people are, reaching certain levels of realization, even in regards to what's happening in the Middle East. I think people that I've never seen before, are coming to realizations about what's happening in Palestine.
Yeah.
And I have to hope that, we will reach a point there. The arc, what does MLK say? The arc of justice will swing towards us. It has to.
It has to.
It has to. There's no other way. History doesn't, this will be fixed, and it will be fixed in a way that is just for them. And it has to. And as soon as everybody realizes that, and as soon as everybody realizes that you do have to sit down with these people, I don't care. You know what I mean? They sat down with us. They said they'd never sit down with us, and they did. They were sitting down with us the whole time. They said they weren't. You know what I'm saying? That's why there's Irish people feel so strongly for Palestinians. Is because in the 80s, we were the PLO in the 80s, you know what I mean? Or they were us. We were the scourge. We were the fucking Hamas of our time. We were bombing train stations. We were doing despicable acts. And that's what happens. Despicable acts will have to happen before you get the foot off your neck. That's just look. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. I'm just saying. These are realities, dude. You know what I'm saying? I'm not out here. You know what I'm saying? You can't be out here, justifying. You know what I mean?
No.
The death of children.
No.
There's no reason you should be asked to, because we aren't asking the United States or these people who have done the most despicable acts. You know what I'm saying? Like how are you able to make a film, the biggest grossing film last year? You know what I'm saying? Starring an Irish cat too, a cat that I have a lot of respect for. You know what I'm saying? It's about the man that invented the atomic bomb, and there's no place in that story for Japanese people. There's nowhere for them somehow. Or somehow we're able to talk about that without really thinking through what we've done, the damage that we've done, and we somehow have some moral authority. We don't have moral authority over anything. When Farrakhan say that shit to Bill Moyers, bro, like I was just like, man, that's it. That's it. Let he who has, you know what I'm saying, not sinned throw the first stone. You have no, and they still put their foot in. They got to put their foot in every fucking thing that happens. And this whole situation in the Middle East this was wrong from the first day, man. And the funny thing is, when you look into the history of it, man, and this is the part that I'm learning too. You know this because we all come out from under the British Empire, but the same dude that was negotiating the treaty in Ireland is the same dude who was then going off drawing the borders in Palestine. You know what I'm saying? It's the same people.
Right.
And somehow we've managed to delude ourselves into this kind of, weirdly and what does Gil Scott Heron call it? The great American anemia and amnesia. But it's this kind of the amnesia express. That's what he calls it. The amnesia. Everything's in front of us. We're moving forward. We just forget what the fuck happened yesterday. It's like, bro, like I'm a Marxist, man. Like, stop this already. Like, these things have history. It's not that far back.
No.
And whether it's slavery or whether it's the treatment of Palestinians and the creation of the state of Israel, all these things need to be taken into account. And in its own small, weird way, hip hop has a part to play.
Yeah. Hip
hop speaks for people. You know what I mean? Finding new ways to tell these truths is part of the deal. It's part of the responsibility.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. Like, we all carry it somehow.
Right.
And so for me, that's it. It's one foot in front of the other. I don't know any other way to do it, really. I mean, it's always the starter for me is like, well, what can I add? Is there something I'm able to add a little bit? And that's Horace Tapscott, Alan Sekula, Mike Davis. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all those are my, Ben Caldwell. You know what I'm saying? Kamal Daoud, like, you know what I'm saying? Those people are Chris Mark or Agnes Varda. Like, those are the lessons. And it's people always say to me, like, it sounds like you always knew what you wanted to do. And it's like, actually, you're making it sound like it was some kind of like, like somebody tapped me on the side of the head, and I was just like, okay, here we go. And that's not really the way it works. But at a certain point, you you start to realize, like, yeah, you're not gonna know Mochila in one photo. You're not gonna know Mochila in one film. I can't make my argument in one film. You might look at me and be like, fuck that guy. And like, actually, it's a fair enough response, actually. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, fuck him. But over time, you're gonna be like, actually, nah, I think I'm beginning to understand a little bit of what they trying to do. But I can't, it's like Joseph Campbell says, like, the highest level of knowledge are the things it's difficult to explain in words. And it's not
true.
something, you got to see the work.
You got to see the work.
Not something I can really explain. It's something you have to, engage with the work, see what we've been doing for the past 20 plus years.
A long time. And
hopefully if we've done our work properly, it'll emerge, you will begin to understand. So now I've not answered your question.
No, you have. This is the convo. I love this. This is the type of stuff. I love all this shit.
Yeah.
I love all this shit. But I agree with you. And I think that's what also gives me hope in this moment, that there's people that maybe I've just met or I've known, maybe a surface a little bit deeper, but not too deep, that I see them being awakened by the truth. And posting on social media things that I never thought that they would say shit about what's happening right now, and not just not just some banner up, Free Palestine, but like fucking paragraphs of like, this fucking shit ain't right. I don't give a fuck who I lost. I'm glad I don't have sponsors. Like, people that I'm just like, this is the shit that I'm talking about. This is the type of work. This is the realization. This is the awakening. This is the work. This is what we need, so that we all say, fuck this shit. We're not free until Palestine's free, until everyone's free, like, and what's the realization? And what's crazy is I'm also seeing people that I would never think even talk about this shit also going to next level and being like, and the U.S. is complicit. And I was just like, this is amazing. I never thought. And here we are. So I'm hopeful. We'll,
I mean, the real test is, and I mean, yeah. If you see the breakdown in numbers, I think I was in the New York Times or the Guardian did it, it's really very little difference between the Democrats and the Republicans in terms of AIPAC or the Israel lobby,
Right.
But that needs to change. I was even surprised AOC the other day. AOC kind of shocked me the other day and said some shit that I was like, did you really need to fucking say that? But that's the mainstream that needs to change. I mean, that's the area where, this is an entirely different argument if you take away the $5 billion or whatever it is that they're giving Israel every year. If that goes on the table and becomes negotiable, and it becomes something that's like, nah, actually, then this state no longer looks like the fucking bully that it actually has become. And, the other thing for me, honestly, it never ceases to, I mean, I am impressed by the courage of many fucking Jewish people to stand up against this.
Right.
And that never, that's a constant. I would just say that it's a constant. And in our community, even, what I'm saying, there are folks that I admire that. I take that shit seriously. I really do. Because I know that shit ain't fucking easy.
No. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, a funny story. I mean, and I know you'll appreciate this is, so in maybe 2007 or 2008, we were approached. We met these guys, and they said they were Jordanian guys, and they said they were trying to be the Mochila of the Middle East, right? And we were like, oh, word, okay, that's dope. Like, figure out the money better than we did. But so then they said, we'd love to, to host you guys, to bring you guys over there. I remember EC was just like, dude, what do you really know about Jordan? I was like, well, and I told him my little few facts or whatever. And so we go there, have this exhibit. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience in general. And we've become friends with all these cats. But we were there. We're sitting at this, it was me and Eric DJing, and then there was these MCs, one MC from Canada and two MCs that were one Palestinian, one Syrian guy. They were both from Southern California, and they were performing there at the same time. So afterwards, we all ended up hanging out, having a smoke, the usual, whatever, listen to records, talk shit. And so somebody asked, like, the three dudes where they had met each other for the first time. And they said that it was this Free Palestine event. And it was in a bookstore. And it was I think it was in Echo Park. And I was like, yo, not only was I there, I was the DJ. They were like, you were the DJ. I totally knew you from here. I was just like, bro, this is too crazy. We're like all the way in Jordan talking about Frank, man. And, I know, man, I'm sending love to Frank, because Frank is a very sensitive man and a tough dude by any measure, right, but also a very sensitive guy. And this has been a hard week for old Frank, bro. This is something that he went there. Remember he went there and he couldn't go in. They sent him back. The Israelis sent him back. They fucking knew. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I always say, like, small acts of solidarity is what builds the real bridges. Like, how did you end up working with Banksy? I ended up working with Banksy because I stood up against, we stood up against police brutality and to free Mumia. Right. And that gave us a reason to talk to Banksy. And when he saw that's what we were doing, he took us seriously. And then we became friends. And you know what I mean? Right. Small, and it's not like we ever do it for transactional reasons, but so much of the time, people that I take seriously in my life, people that I am in contact with, it's through ideas, it's through cause, it's through actually standing up and saying difficult things often that we develop relationships, So right. Yeah. So I know you. You know what I mean?
That's how I know you. And when Jasbo was on here, we were talking about, I met him because he requested to come to Art Speaks at the El Rey, and we've been friends ever since. And I just saw him 2 weeks ago. Academy Award winner. He hasn't changed. And he was like, I'm spending time with you because I want to spend time with you. And we were talking about, we've grown, all of us have grown in this industry, in this scene, and gone so many different places, right? Because of the nonlinear career path. And now we're in different places of power in different ways. And we're still, nothing's changed. We're still about, small acts of solidarity, being advocates for our communities in so many different ways. And I love seeing that. It's just like, okay, we met, hip hop brought us together, being activists at a time brought us together. We're still here. We're still fighting the good fight and all that good stuff. But it's crazy. And also, Frank is he's kind of like the glue and the nucleus for a lot of stuff, for sure. A lot of stuff. Shout out to Frank. Okay, so let's get into, are you cool on time? Because I've already taken an hour of your time. Okay, let's get into the questions and comments from the audience. First question. This is from the Supernatural Bear, Rocka and I's amazing son who just turned 11. He said, please ask Mr. B how he got into photography and why.
So, to be honest with you, I didn't. I had a friend growing up who was a photographer, and as a result, like in my teenage years, I don't think we didn't even have a camera in my house, man. I drawing, that was it for me. Here's a pencil and a bit of paper. Shut up. You know what I mean? So, but in art school, then a little bit later, I was interested in ideas. And the thing about photography that interested me was that you could make images really quickly. You could refer to things really quickly. It was like a shorthand way to, it would take me a long minute to draw something where it was like, click.
Yeah.
And so at first it was just photographing other things, even sometimes other photographs, magazines, newspapers. That's how I started. And then it was through the process of eventually starting to fall in love with the actual medium itself and start to begin to really take it seriously. But that didn't really happen until I came to California, honestly. I was a landscape photographer, but I was really somebody interested in ideas and telling stories. And then photography just kind of found me a little bit, So, yeah.
Love that. Okay, next one. Ask him when the Mattress coffee book is coming out. And that's by Assad. That's Assad, from, founder of Footlong Development. Bringing a lot of the quality shit like Wonderful and Soul Slam and all that shit.
Oh, man, you know you gotta love Assad, man.
Of course.
Assad, another solid, another glue. Yes. Another node in the rhizomatic world we live in. Basically, it's coming. I mean, it's actually coming. He's going to laugh his ass off, but it's laid out. It's not finished. There is some work to be done. But yes, there will be in the next year, hopefully. I'm working on this Supremes film right now, so that's taking up a lot of my time. But this My American Landscape book, I know it's mattresses, but yes, My American Landscape book will be
so it's literally mattresses. It's like,
oh yeah, I've been photographing discarded mattresses since the 90s, basically. And I go through phases of it. I go through super productive phases. People call me all the time. People photograph them on their phones and send them to me and shit. But yeah, I just had this weird, I don't know, like by now I think my students think it's like some fucking weird fetish, but it was really me just having a new camera that wasn't, it wasn't a reflex camera. It was like a camera where it was a reflex camera. So you didn't look through the lens, you looked through the viewfinder, and it didn't. You weren't, so there was a little bit of parallax. So to figure out the camera, I was like, I gotta find something to shoot that I can shoot every day. And I tell my students this, like, if you want to learn how to be a photographer, find something you can shoot every day and just do it. And just fucking do it. Don't even think about it. Just fucking do it. And this was the mattresses. And then, they pop up from time to time, and there's definitely been records. It was a series of Irish records of the beat scene in LA that came out about 10 years ago, and all the covers were the mattress photos. Like everybody was on there actually, like Ross G, Kuma, Eric, who else had songs on there? Daedalus, Lotus, I think was on there. Shafiq had one. But anyways, yeah, there were a series of 10 inches and all the photos were mattress photos. But yeah, it's by now it's kind of, but I also think, I know Assad's always counting me for that shit. So
So speaking of your students, I thought this would be, I don't know if you've seen any of these, but it says, he cares about his students and is really funny, gives good feedback, conducts crit in a way that leaves none feeling awful about themselves. Classes are 3 hours, but his jokes and humor make time pass fast. Have you read it? Have you heard of any of these? These are student reviews of your class.
You went on Rate My Professor?
Yeah.
Oh, you're terrible. Oh, you're terrible.
I was like, let me see what these kids are talking about.
Whoever wrote that, like they wrote like, so I don't know if you know how this works for us, but like when you teach at the end of every quarter, the students get an email that's a pretty in-depth series of questions they have to answer about basically rating my performance as a professor. Was the class what you expected? Did you learn anything? Would you recommend it to your friends? What was he like? Was he prepared? Was he not prepared? And of course, this is fucking kind of challenging shit. You know what I mean? Because like you have weeks when you're, I mean, I have weeks when I'm on, but I also have like, especially in the middle of the quarter, there'll be a few weeks where it's like, yo,
A little rough.
I don't want to be here, kind of weeks.
Totally.
That's when I lean into the films. You know what I mean? I always have a couple of good films up my sleeve. Like, I know this will rock their shit a little bit. That's enough. But that's worded very like one of the reviews I got last quarter.
Oh, really?
That's very sweet. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think if you want to teach in an art school, you have to be able to do critique well.
Right.
And I think you have to be honest, and you have to have some integrity with your students, and you have to be your authentic self somehow.
Right.
Like, I remember when I first started teaching, that was the best advice I got, actually. And it was a guy from the music school. His name is Kamau Kenyatta. He's an amazing teacher. But he said there's no substitute for authenticity.
Right.
And I was just like, it just made me feel free to like, just be you. Dude.
Yeah.
It's okay. And so, like us, and I tell jokes, and I'm myself. And if I want to talk about Palestine for 10 minutes, I probably will. Or if I want to talk about, you know what I'm saying, whatever.
And that's how I knew. That's how I knew you haven't changed, because I was like, who wrote some of the lower scores? And they were like, sometimes he goes off on tangents about like, his politics. I was like, oh, hasn't changed. Oh,
no, and I mean, I'm teaching in San Diego, so you know what I'm saying? When I teach some of them big general ed classes, oh yeah, they find me. So I've had people say like, I thought he's supposed to be European. Oh, word.
Hilarious. Okay. So the next question, it says, who is the most fascinating musician and or person you met in your travels? Okay, that's a lot of travel. So maybe top 5 if you have to. And this is by the amazing previous Word to Your Mama guest, DJ Mona Lisa Murray.
Oh, Mona. God, I love Mona Lisa, dude. Anyways, Mona Lisa posted something this morning. I laughed my ass off. Anyways,
I'll have to check it out.
Mona is amazing person that I'm always happy to see. That's a very difficult question. I think I'm Wayne Shorter. I only met him very briefly. Wayne Shorter has one of the most extraordinary minds I think I've ever come across. Banksy is one of the most extraordinary people. I'm thinking of people that really rocked my shit, like to the point where I was like, I spent a while with them, but I was just like, holy, whoa. Badu, man. Badu is really, that's a kind of difficult one in the sense that like it's very difficult to put your finger precisely on what it is about Erica that is so mind warping. But I remember the first time I photographed Shabba Ranks. Ooh. And I remember Shabba Ranks come in the room, and it was the first time I ever seen somebody where it was like the entire room changed when they came in. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's okay with somebody come in and like the first person they meet suddenly lights up when they start talking to them or something. But this is before they talk to anybody.
It was like a vibe.
The entire room changed. The vibe changed. Badu has that. Badu carried that with her in a way that's, and we're friends, you know. I mean, I rate old E, man. She's an important person. That's hard, dude. I mean, there's people that I met that I was just like so profound. Like, you know, I met Shuggy Otis. I met John Lee Hooker. I met Biggie. You know what I mean? I've met people that I'm just like, whoa, fuck. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to talk to people that are like really a very special kind of intelligence. Yeah, that's a hard question, dude.
But you named some good ones. That's fascinating. That's definitely fascinating. Next question. What is your favorite Dilated Peoples album cover and why? And that is by your friend of mine, Rocket Taylor, 1/3 of Dilated Peoples.
Good one, dude. I think Yeah, I think I would have to say okay, so like here's the thing. I think my favorite photo of Dilated Peoples was made for the second record, the one we did at which is called, why am I spacing on the name? Which was we made it at LAX. Uh, but the as far as the actual cover itself, the platform is kind of still, just one of those ones. But I mean, I photographed them when they weren't even Dilated Peoples.
When they were flatliners?
Yes. Even if, I don't even know if they were flatliner. Yeah. Were they turnstiles? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was in that moment where they were like trying to figure it out. And, and I mean, I know Rock. How long do I know these guys?
How did you meet them? Who did you meet first? And where was that?
So I met them both, I think, at the same time at the old hip hop shop on Melrose in like right when this was all starting, like 1991.
Wow.
And maybe the beginning of 1992. And they were both part of Rocksteady. And I'm not even sure that they had even started to, you know what I'm saying, mess with each other yet. And then, and I know that for sure because I have photos of it. But then, it wasn't, I met a bunch of people at the same time. So, I didn't know that's who they were or whatever. So, I met Rhett then as well at the same time. But then I remember in the sort of mid-90s, Jessica Clark, who was the manager of Cypress Hill at the time, or was working for Happy Walters, who was the manager of Cypress Hill at the time, had a place in Venice. She used to live in Venice. And I remember going over there a few times to hang out or whatever. And she telling me about her neighbor, Baby Mike. And then for a good few years, I knew Baby Mike as Baby Mike. And it was Mike. It was Ev, you know what I mean?
Hilarious.
So, yeah. So, I feel like and Rock was always one of them dudes. And then Rock was always the cat that was, you know what I'm saying? I always felt like Rock was the conscious one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was always the one that was engaged and, so that was always, and it was just like a big group of friends, you know what I mean? There was like the Soul Sides dudes and the Jurassic dudes and then Dilated and them. And even Al, was always there on the perimeters, but I didn't really, I would say I never really, really, really hung out with Al. But if I ever see him, it's always like the old friends. Yeah. But so then to have the opportunity to work with them, especially in that period, that was very special. And Brent, Brent is
Brent Rollins,
fucking amazing guy. And all those album covers I've done with him, you know what I mean? But I've been trying to get Eric to understand, because he's always like, whenever you show up, the edits just get better. You didn't touch the computer. It's like, dude, even if I'm just in the room, if I say nothing, you're going to see shit differently.
Right.
And I think that, and that's the kind of measure of a good creative relationship, I think. And me and Brent,
Same.
did so many things over the years, from Rap Pages to all those record covers, that it was just he just had a different set of eyes from my photos than I did. And so that's how it would be. Sometimes he had this really strong idea that he wanted, and then I see it and I'm just like, and then, you know what I'm saying? But those were very special times. I remember that stuff very fondly. And then, working with Babs afterwards, and even seeing Mike become a photographer, dude, it's just crazy.
Crazy. In a good way. Yeah,
crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny that what you said about how Coleman, shout out to Coleman, how he's just you come in, it's because you guys respect each other, so you challenge each other. It's game recognized game, and what do they say, steel sharp, whatever,
steel sharp and steel.
Yeah, it's you're around each other, and so as a creative, that's what I do, that's what Rocka does, and we've evolved after so many years. But I feel so fortunate that he's here. He's like, whatever project I do, I always show it to him, right? And I hate because of the dynamic, because we're married too, is there's like an extra level. And I hate when he says something and I'm not seeing it because I think my shit is so fucking dope. Right. And I'm not seeing it at the time. And he says it. And I was like, he's saying it just to spite me. And then the moment of realization that motherfucker was right kills me sometimes, you know?
I turned the ego down a little bit.
Totally, you know? So yeah, I get that
that's art
relationship.
school. I mean, what I would say is one of the things that art school, especially in Ireland, which was very brutal, but that was one of the things that they really, you know, they really leaned into, was that you just stop being precious about your shit.
Yeah.
Don't, you know, just let it go.
Right.
Trust the other person that he ain't going to tell you something. You know what I mean? He ain't going to. Now, okay, there's going to be times when, this is the deal. You at least got to try it my way.
Yeah.
And then look at the two. Then A, B it. And then be honest.
Right.
And then if it's, you know, man, I love it when someone shows me some shit that I didn't see. I mean, I was just fucking great. Thank you for catching me.
Exactly. That's what it ends up being. But sometimes I was like, God damn it, you know. But
I see you gritting your teeth. I know how you are.
Like that motherfucker.
You know, I mean, it is in the end. You know, we are really only. You know, we are really only as a measure. We're only as good as the people we carry around us, bro. Like, that's it.
That's why
you know
I only want quality motherfuckers around me, real motherfuckers, quality motherfuckers, and stuff. Because it's you want to know me. Look at the people I'm around. You know,
no, that's what I'm saying.
My tribe is dope. Okay, final question before we go into this other round. If you have time, what are you currently? This is for me. What are you currently nerding out on? As far as like, could be anything, movies, music. Like, I'm interested. Like, what is B listening to that you're like heavy rotation? It could be old, new. What is that right now for you?
Well, I blew out a few engines there over the summer on this whole Supremes thing. So that's what I haven't made a feature in, it's been 10 years. I mean, I've done it for other people, but as far as something just completely out of my brain or whatever, like I haven't done that in 10 years, you know, since Timeless. Is that true? Yeah.
Wow.
Since Timeless. So that's what I've been doing really is, crazy enough, reading and consuming everything to do with 1981 in Ireland. Wow. That's what I've been doing for the past 12 months, pretty much. As far as music, I don't know. Like I think if you went through my my streaming business, you'll find, I don't know, in the past sort of 12 months, I've gone through phases of listening to George Duke, of listening to just Japanese jazz, of listening to Irish rap, of which the city I'm from is fucking killing everybody right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Check that out.
Yeah. There's somebody you should definitely check out who I've been working with and who's in this film and I've made a film with as well. There's a young MC from Limerick called Denise Chyla.
Okay.
And she's something else, man. She's some special shit. I was happy during the summer she got a chance to meet Anna.
Oh, nice.
Because I was I was just happy to just sit back and fold my arms and watch him just laughing and be like, oh, thank God. See, it's not so bad. That's it. When I go down the rabbit hole, I go pretty hard, dude. So if you look at all the books, you look at my Amazon fucking madness over the past 12 months, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what it was like for me aged 15.
Wow.
This film is about the Supremes. The Supremes, Mary Wilson basically was the other two Supremes, original Supremes anyway. Florence Ballard had died, and Diana Ross had obviously moved on. I guess by that point, Diana Ross was about to start working with Nile Rodgers and have this whole new career. But Mary Wilson was still hanging on to the name, fighting with Berry Gordy, and was trying to tour. And they found their way to Ireland. I don't know why. They were stuck. And in Ireland, they were robbed in Limerick, my hometown. And it's a kind of a mad story. But I Kamau Kenyatta, this guy who teaches in the music school here at UCSD, when I first came down here, he asked to see me, and I went to see him. He was looking to collaborate with me, to have me do photos, for some projects he was working on or whatever. And we started talking, and he was like, I see you're from Ireland, like, what city are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Limerick. And his face changed, and he said, I was robbed there once. And so it turned out that he was the piano player.
Shut up.
In the group, and he kept a photo diary. So, and that's when I was like, oh man, I've been thinking for a long time about making a film about Ireland in the 80s, because obviously that's where I grew up. And then there's a lot of things that I felt like I needed to revisit that I could help actually now kind of unpack.
Right.
And so this was like, here's an opportunity to.
Man, how crazy. Yeah. Again, another moment. Someone
but
like,
you it's like a frequency. Like, you have to be pay attention.
Right.
Listen very carefully to what's being offered to you, because the universe is showing you, like, at every moment, it's telling you, like, yo, that's where you should be going. It's up to you to listen.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I do believe that. So, yeah. But anyways, so that's what I've been working on for the past 3 years. Yeah.
So you've been working on the past 3 years. You're working hardcore. You were over there this summer. When is it? Are you in post? Where
it'll
are you
be
at?
out. Yeah, we're like 80%. One of the singers just showed up just yesterday, which is crazy. So I have a call in to her. Hopefully I'll get to talk to her. But we're like 85-90% done with shooting. Post's supposed to start in November. Got a pretty decent sized grant from the Irish Arts Council.
Dope.
Probably get another grant now from UCSD, and hopefully February we're done. I'm hoping. But we put a band together. We really, man. It's been a pretty wild journey. I've never done anything like this before. I would say that's the best way to stay young, dude.
Right.
To do things that you've never done
shit.
before.
Yeah, hell yeah.
New shit. Novelty, they call it.
Yeah.
Just do novelty. So
dope.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited, to hear the full story. Since you've answered a lot of questions, it took a lot of your time. There's only 2 questions left. One is, What is your go-to hype song that you always go to when you need like some motivation?
There's a few, dude.
Give me 2 and the situation. Like, what do you need? Like, this is for when this is happening, and this is when I need this.
So if I'm feeling homesick, I'm either going for Christmas in New York or Listum Varna. One is by Christy Moore and the other is by the Pogues. That's, if you can sit with me and drink a pint of Guinness and hear that song and you don't see a little tear appear somewhere, then you might want to take me to the hospital. Then there's, so like any of the songs by Doom from before the album, that album came out. So like there was 3 12-inches by Bobbito that was put out by Bobbito on Fondle 'Em. One of them's Greenbacks.
Este anuncio es sobre la oferta de AT&T para el nuevo iPhone 15 Pro, que es garantizada, aunque ese no es el caso con otros anuncios.
Todos caerán a tus pies. Con el jabón, enamórale.
Spoiler alert, no funciona. En AT&T, lo que decimos va en serio. Descubre cómo obtener el iPhone 15 Pro con titanio por cuenta nuestra con intercambio elegible. Conectar lo cambia todo. Visita tt.com/iPhone para más detalles sobre la garantía de la promoción de intercambio para clientes nuevos y existentes. Disponible por tiempo limitado, sujeto a términos y restricciones.
The other one is It's not all caps. What the fuck is the name of it? I'm spacing on it. But there's three of those. There's 312. So after Doom passed, I don't know, man. That was one that really that hit really, really hard. I mean, there's been a few that have hit hard, honestly, since I feel like since 2020, we've all been, you know what I'm saying? We've had to confront the notion of our mortality in a very serious way, in a way that I wasn't familiar with prior to that. Like, obviously, Dilla, Dusk, do you know what I mean? But like, this was like, it seemed like for a while, it was like week to week to week to week. And as part of, I mean, the Doom one, I don't know what it was about Doom. Doom was always one of them dudes that it was like, you wanted to win because he just had the other narrative. He had the, you know what I mean? Like this Irish website asked me, you know, like, who's your favorite MC or whatever? And I said, I have to say Doom. And I was trying to think like, well, why is that? Right. And then, and I think when I first was listening to hip hop, I feel like KRS-One's biography was emblematic in many respects of the music and where it was in that moment. As somebody raised in an orphanage, you know, homeless, looked after by somebody who ends up developing him as an MC, you know what I mean, to channels all this Jamaican energy. It just felt like his biography somehow was emblematic of the culture. Right. And then somehow the period of my involvement in you know, like when I came to LA, I don't know if it was the very first show I went to, but it certainly was the first one or two shows I went to. I went to see De La Soul play at the Palladium. And like, look at this lineup. It was, De La was the headliners, Brand Nubian, KMD.
Wow. Yeah.
And Leaders of the New School.
Wow.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know what I mean? You went to see hip hop.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. You know what I mean? It was like,
could you see hip hop?
Yeah. Yeah. And then somehow, and then the best part was that when I was leaving, there was a shootout in the front of the Palladium, and it was between Booyah and Tone Loc's people. Had a shootout. So you can imagine what that looked like.
Wow. That was hip hop.
That was hip hop. It was 1990, bro. Like September 1990, I think that was.
That was hip hop. That was LA all at once.
All in one experience. You know what I mean? You couldn't have paid for it, but no. I mean, I paid for it like $20. I mean, I was like, wow. You know, I just had this experience. But and somehow Doom, you know, in everything that happened, you know, like going through the whole era of being censored and losing the deal and losing his brother and going to Atlanta and going underground and then coming back with a, you know what I mean? When those records when Bobbito put out those records, dude, like, you know, like that was the Fat Beats era, you know what I mean? And it was just, those records were just unfadable. Like those are just, you know, in the same way as you think about Dilla, but there's something about Doom energy wise. You know what I'm saying?
And the like time that he came out, like that time. Yeah. It was all those factors. And,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that any of those songs will get, you know what I mean? That just gets me on my shit. I'm ready to go now. We're ready. All right, what do we got to do? I'm ready. You know what I mean? I try to do it that's the other thing is like to be able to do things. I mean, and that's always been the thing is like, no matter what it is that you do, no matter what it is that you're given an opportunity to do, just do it as absolutely as toughest fucking level that you can possibly do it at. And, you know, that's Doom. You know what I mean? Like you know, that's that shit. And so for me, it's a good reminder. Yeah, you know, first freestyle fellowship, to whom it may concern. Do you know what I mean? Like that shit'll get me giddy always. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like I'm on nostalgia shit. But as far as some new shit, that's funny. Denise has a song that I fucking love, which is about Limerick, which is about my hometown, which is called 061. That's pretty.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, that'll get me fired up. That's unquestionably get me fired up. But yeah, man, it's a weird thing too. Like, it's also the town that the Cranberries are from. So there's a bunch of Cranberries music, but it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't reach me in the same way. I'll sing it,
Right.
but it, it doesn't reach me in the same way. It's weird. It's weird how it's weird how emotionally music, for whatever reason, will reach you in different ways or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not
different ways at different times of your life. Something that maybe wasn't even tapping you. Maybe it was like, oh, that's a nice memory. And then later it's just like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, I don't think Christmas in New York was that big of a deal for me when I lived at home. But then when I came here, I remember the first few Christmases I wasn't able to go home, and I hear that shit. And there's something about like, yeah. I mean, this immigrant stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't think people look at me and the first thing they think is immigrant, but that is the reality that I live. You know what I mean? I do feel differently when I'm there. I do. You know what I mean? I hope I have the chance for all my friends to see me there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That would be dope.
That would be really dope. Yeah.
It's different. You see a different frame, you know? So.
And everyone, Rocka loves it there. You know, my best friend, her family adopted me when my mom passed away in college. And, you know, they're half Irish. They're from Cork. And also from Butte, Montana, which they told me is really big. And it's like you're a celebrity if you're from Butte, Montana, and you go to Ireland. So they told me
Montana is Mike Davis, who was my professor, said it's the most Irish town he's been to outside of Ireland. I've never been there, but a writer I respect from my hometown, actually, Kevin Barry, we had a very long conversation about it. And yeah, I was shocked. Because I think normally people think about Ireland, the Irish in America, they think about the obvious places, you know, like the Bronx, Chicago, Boston,
yeah,
even San Francisco. But Butte is a weird thing. That's kind of like Newfoundland, which is just like, you know, is so isolated as a place that they kind of kept to themselves, and then the culture kind of stayed in an interesting way, and it kind of, you know, it's not Irish American. It's more Irish.
It's more Irish,
which is a real difference. Yeah,
right.
That's a real difference. You know,
and
because Irish American, for me, to be honest with you, was something I moved away from actually. You know, even like saying it like that, but when I first came here, a lot of the Irish Americans that I met were very conservative, actually. You know, like, and you know, I mean, we know this about ourselves too. Like we're well capable of all the foul shit too. Do you know what I mean? For sure. I mean, there's a book. I remember Organic. I don't know. Did you ever meet Organic? Kevin Fitzgerald, African-American filmmaker from here, but Irish in the family. And he showed me this book called How the Irish Became White. And it's the history of that. You know, it's the history of how we switched our position on abolition, basically.
Wow.
You know, because we Frederick Douglass came to Ireland. You know, Frederick Douglass escaped the United States and came to Ireland. And in the end, the Irish in America kind of sold them out.
Wow. Yeah, man. That I'm going to take a note of that book. Thank you for those songs. They're going to be added to the Word to Your Mama guest hype list song. I always put them to the front. It's 4 hours now. I think it's the first time. For sure, it's the first time the Pogues are on there. And I'm excited to put everyone that you put on there. I maybe the first time MF? No, I think there's a MF Doom song on there.
Let me give you the specific. Maybe I'll pick a specific MF Doom song so it's not like the whole all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, you can give that to me. And I met the Callahans when I was in college, and they took me in, and I went to Auntie Peg's house. She lived in Lakewood, rest her soul. And there was a big, it was like a knitted thing of Butte, Montana. And they were telling me how their family was there. And it's like Ireland, outside of Ireland. And during those times, they would make the money from mining and send money to Ireland. And so shout out to Patrick Callahan. That's my best friend's father. He's a supernatural bear. It's his grandfather by heart. And he said when he was able to travel, he'd go back and he'd wear his Butte, Montana shirt. Free drinks, and just like celebrity status, like for those that know. And I thought it was fascinating. I would have never known that if I, didn't have their family to me, So
did you ever talk to them about the Brigada San Patricio?
I did, and because I knew about that because of a book that I had read, I think in college. So hell yeah. Like, and he's married to a lot, like, you know, the Supernatural Bird's grandma, she's Latina and Navajo. And I was like, yes, that makes sense.
And you know about the Navajos too? You know about the Navajos during the famine?
Yes.
Sending money to Ireland? Come on,
That's
man.
what I'm saying. It was like all meant to be. And I was just like, wow, this is, yeah, it's amazing. So
yeah, it's very nice. They would be lovely for them to have the opportunity to see the monument there in Ireland. They built to say thank you, basically.
Right.
But that's what I mean. Those are the stories that define us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, let's get fucking Howard's in on this shit.
Yeah.
Let's do that, dude.
Unite and shake the shit up. Man. Have people get shook and stuff.
Come on, man.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Let go of these triumphalist narratives. These, you know what I mean? It's just fucking idiocy, man. What are you triumphalist about? Look around you. Look how much hunger, poverty. Look at the fucking healthcare system. Look at the educational system.
Right.
Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? This is a joke. This is a joke. This whole notion, this whole American exceptionalism. It's exceptionalism for what?
For what? Nah.
How whack it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man.
Right.
Fucking program. But anyways, sure.
Final question before I let you go. Yes. What will be your legacy, B? Oh.
Yeah, I'm not very good at thinking about that type of shit. Part of the gift, if it is that, for me, is to stay as absolutely grounded in the present as I possibly can. And so, and I've lost, I don't know if I've lost friends, but I've definitely lost relationships over this shit. But so I'm terrible at like, what's your 5-year plan? It's like, to get to next week,
right?
You know what I mean? Like,
tomorrow, get to tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. So the legacy, Jesus, I don't know. What I would say is like, I think what sustains me is that somehow the way you do this is as important as some kind of goal. You know what I mean? Like that, there is a way to walk this path. There is a way, these are incredibly treacherous and difficult places in many respects that we walk. The politics of representation have never been more fraught with difficulty. The complications around talking across race, gender, you know what I'm saying, have never been quite as complicated as they are in this moment. But that's why it's important to be steadfast, be careful, double down. You know what I mean? Not double down in the sense of like, backing yourself up when you're wrong.
Right. Totally.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, which is often how people say double down, but double down in the sense of like, like I know this is important now. And as difficult as it is, and as thin as the work might seem sometimes, or the money might seem sometimes, you know what I'm saying? This is important to do this. So, when I read a student saying something like that, or when I have a colleague reach out to me and tell me, you've always been a North Star for us, that kind of shit, like that's more than plenty, that sustains me.
Right.
Whether that'll last after, who knows? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like, have I kept this whole archive together carefully enough to where it lasts and where my daughter will be able to take care of it? I don't know. You know what I mean? So. I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
I think so.
But I mean, thank you for affording me the opportunity to even think about it for a second. So.
Well, muchísimas gracias. I've taken way more of the time that, you allotted. So I really appreciate it. Let people know where they can find you, what's coming up, whatever you want them to know.
Easiest way to find always is mochila.com. Just hit the contact or info or whatever, any of those connects in there, you can find us. Or Mochila on MOCHILL, gringo spelling, on the gram, or Be Pleasel which is B Please, Please, and an L on the end. You can find me on the gram. And just, we out here, dude. It's all good. Happy to be seeing you.
Same. And all this will be in the show notes. I'm going to have links to all his shit, everything we talked about. I'm definitely going to need to ask you for that book. The white, what was it called?
How the Irish Became White.
Yes, like I need that. I want to get that for
no lignative. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to get all that stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, muchísimas gracias. And we really, honestly, we talked about almost 2 hours. We could have talked 5 hours. We didn't even touch upon so many things. So, if you're down at another day, would love to have you on and just talk about whatever. Super other things. So muchísimas gracias.
Please, yes, likewise. And please give a hug to the two dudes at the crib for me.
I will. Thank you.
All to the good.
And now introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner.
Supernatural Bear. Burp.
This song goes out to all the people who love yams. Hit it!
Can I get to the yams? Sweet yams. Show me the way, 'cause I got bills to pay. Shoo-dooby-doo. Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. That's B+. B Plizzle. How crazy is that? I mean, the amount of stories we didn't even get into. This is kind of like a Questlove Supreme. Like this could be like 4 parts because we didn't even touch about so many different things. And I learned so much in this convo. I said it in the beginning. I said it in the episode. You don't talk to your friends like this, right? It's interesting how you can be around people for mad years. I met B, 2000, over 20 years ago when I first moved to LA, and I was deep into the activist scene. I was first time living by myself in LA. I just graduated college at Long Beach State, came up to LA, was living by myself, was going to all these events and just making my way by myself. I was interning at the world famous Wake Up Show, and then I was going to all these events solo. Also, this was the time, kids, when there weren't that many women at these hip hop events. So if my homeboy Dave couldn't roll, then I'd be rolling solo. And I was in this mix. And so that's how I met B. I think I might have met B before I met Raka or around the same time. But one of the, re-listening to this episode and having conversations about these times reminded me something about B+. I met him at a Mumia 911 event, like I mentioned, and I love his photos from Jump and what he was doing. He was, really, really telling a story. Like I could tell from Jump, he was a storyteller. But anyways, I'm around all these people, movers and shakers, and I'm the new kid on the block. And I was helping with the Art Speaks. And that's how I mentioned how I met Jazzbo. And I met a lot of people through this activism work. And I remember I'd go in there and, I was in the offices, putting this event together. It was like 2001. And I'd never done it before. But I just knew what to do because for me it was common sense. So anyways, I remember I think B+ came into the office or he called and I picked up the phone and he said something to me and I remember it kept me going. He was like, thank you so much for, joining, midway through or something like that. And, really energized, like your enthusiasm, your energy really has, picked everyone up because it was just, I think when you keep I don't know what it was, but I remember one of the things, and we talked about it on here before, is that figure it outness, right? Figure it outness. And I remember I went in and something happened. I don't know, the piano player dropped, something happened. And I remember I was just like, okay, let me just call around. This is like internet was the thing. It wasn't even like an all day thing. Like it wasn't like, oh, let's just Google that shit and smartphones. There was none of that shit. I think I still had my Trio back in the days. So I remember I just called around, and I'm not talking about B+ now. I'm talking about just people in the office. They were like amazed. They were like, have you done this before? And I was like, no. They're like, how did you know what to do? I go, I don't know. To me, it seemed like common sense. Common sense. But anyways, that's how far we go back. And it's fascinating that I get to learn so much more. I was having the convo when I was editing this with Rocka, and I was like, did you know? He was like, what? He goes, I didn't know that. I go, exactly. You've known him longer than I have, and you didn't even know these little, tidbits and all these areas where so many things cross. Like he was living in the Mission up in San Francisco, in the Mission area, Mission District, the same time as my rib, same time as people that are my family now. And, who's to say? Maybe they crossed paths, maybe they didn't. It's wild to me. It's super wild. But I'm just super grateful that we have people still around that contribute so much to this culture. And I just had a conversation earlier today with someone that was saying, how much hip hop really impacted their lives during a crucial time, a pivotal time in their life. And I was like, yeah, I always say music saved my life, but hip hop saved my life. And to be able to speak to so many people that have really been integral part of this is amazing. I know I'm blessed. And we just keep it moving. So, as always, gracias for supporting us. You know all the different ways you can support us, and a lot of them are free. Leave us a review. Tell your folks, tell your peeps, tell your friends. You can buy us a whiskey at Buy Us a Coffee. All these links I'm talking about right now are in the show notes. You become a patron, as you heard in the promo, and just spread the word. Let us know what's going down. We're soon to be wrapping up 2023, and I got some really good, unique episodes coming up with some experts for different reasons that I think are really going to help out the community. And, I want to know the feedback. Hit us up, DM us, email us, whatever, smoke signal, whatever. And, I hope if you're listening to this during the holidays, I hope you and your loved ones are safe. And I hope during these heavy, heavy fucking times, you are still taking time out to decompress, go in, be introspective, and then be with the familia, because I know that energizes me, and that reminds me of why it's so fucking important to keep going. Yeah, that's it before I get into another rant. This is already a hella long episode. So yeah, you guys want to go. Okay. And as always, we reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Intro beat produced by Nico Beats. If you want to know more, you want to email us, you want to get the media kit, go head over to wordtoyourmama.com. Word to Your Mama is now part of the Latina Podcasters Network. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by ritzyperiwinkle.com. Make sure to follow Word to Your Mama on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you stream your podcast, or download the Latina Podcasters Network app.